So let's talk a bit about temples. Like, what are they? Why do they have an open house? Why does anyone want to go?
Yeah, temples are the coolest thing. They're similar to our church buildings. You maybe have seen them before. We have a whole lot of them, but they're big, beautiful white buildings. And we go there as church members to make more promises with God, similar to, getting baptized, but additional things that can give us power and strength in our life. And so there have been a lot of temple open houses lately, in which if you ever get the opportunity to go to one, I would highly recommend, because before temples are dedicated or kind of closed off to the public, they have this big open house where anyone can just walk through and see what it's like in there. And they're just absolutely beautiful. But one of the things that we get the opportunity to do inside of temples is be baptized for our deceased ancestors on behalf of them. So that's a question that a lot of people have. What happens to people that never knew about Jesus and they've died? But I just absolutely love that answer, that we get to go and do that work for them. And in the spirit world in heaven, they can choose to accept or reject that. So we're not taking away their choice, but they get to have that opportunity to still come unto Christ, even though they didn't have the opportunity while they were alive.
I think it's so important to note what you just said about we're not taking their choice away. We're not forcing them to be baptized. I view it as when someone's passing an hors d'oeuvre, they come by you with a plate and say, would you like one? They're not holding you down, pinning you down and shoving it down your throat, but they're just offering, would you like this? It's available to you and you can choose to take it and eat it. And similarly, doing the work on their behalf does kind of the same thing. It offers the option. And some people might say like, oh, this church must have come up with that idea. But I recall this being done in the Bible.
Right. Yeah, there is a Bible verse about this. So we did not make it up.
And it was being done so long ago and approved of by those at that time.
Right.
So with the open house, they're very infrequent. Like when a temple is built, before it's dedicated, there's the chance for anyone in the public to come through and take a tour. And then in the case of the Washington, D.C. temple open house, I believe it was 50 years ago that it was built and dedicated. And that was the last time it was open to the public. And since they did renovations, this was the chance again. So I guess someone might have it more than once in their lifetime. But I think the point is, if you're in a local area and you see an open house, make sure you go. I mean, even if you're only mildly interested, there's a rare opportunity.
Yes, it's an incredible experience. And it's not something by invitation only. You can find information for it no matter what. You can show up and they'll let you in as long as it has not been dedicated yet.
Exactly. And if people had questions, they could probably go to the Come Unto Christ site and, ask the missionaries and they would point them in the right direction. And, anytime there's a local open house happening, there are a lot of people prepared to answer a bunch of questions.
Yes, that is so true.
And so once, someone goes to the temple for themselves and maybe they have a tiny family, so they did their family work and they can't find any more people. Why do they keep going back? Like, what's the incentive or what's the feeling they're after?
There is something so special about doing these ordinances in the temple. I've never been in a place on earth that I've felt more peace and more close to Jesus Christ than in that building. I couldn't tell you what it is, but it just offers some kind of protection and strength. And I think most church members would agree that that is just such a special place to be. And you want to go back as much as you can.
There's this wonderful video. It's now on YouTube called Between Heaven and Earth. Have you seen it?
I don't think so.
I love it. It talks about temples, and then they actually have leaders of other churches talking about our temples and why they kind of admire them and that kind of thing. And I feel like the title says it all, Between Heaven and Earth. It really feels like, yeah, this probably is not quite heaven, but it definitely, a lot of people would say it feels like stepping out of the typical earthly life and into something a lot more heavenly. And a lot of people at the open house, even before it's dedicated, seem to feel that as well, like a deep peace that is just found nowhere else.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about temples.
Of course.